I'm Sarah Lacey. Thank you for joining us at TechCrunch TV. My guest today is a very famous angel investor in Europe, Klaus Hommels, and you are now running a sort of federation of group buying sites and shopping sites that turns out is one of the biggest networks of these things in the world, right?
I guess so, yes. So like 2 years ago, we started a shopping club sites a la Guild and Vente Privé, and we started them in emerging markets, starting in Turkey, Brazil, in Australia, in Arabian Emirates, in India, and in Mexico. So I mean, every 3 seconds somebody registers, and every 8 seconds somebody buys. So we are nicely on a run rate of more than 400 million US dollar, and I think we are like 8, 9 million members now.
So,
On the group buying sides, we launch group buying models in the same geographies and work together with these shopping clubs so we could benefit from these members. And there we are probably a little bit about 5 million members and a little bit around like 200 million in run rate.
Now, what we tend to see with both of these categories, especially the group buying sites, is that you have the big ones like Groupon, who are going around acquiring a lot of these smaller players in other countries and trying to kind of serve out of this big, as this big monolith, I guess. And then you have a lot of these little clones that are doing different things in different countries. You guys are somewhere in the middle. Each of the sites is individually run and owned, right, by local entrepreneurs. But then you have this sort of shared federation. What is the benefit of that type of system?
So firstly, I think it's still, we are in every country #1 or #2. So as a business, it's pretty big. So we think that there's a good argument to be had to have very strong local entrepreneurs. So we hire very strong local entrepreneurs that run the business, and we try to learn from all the different geographies and to transport that learnings within the group. So we organize conferences like 3, 4 a year where everybody meets, and you have special workshops regarding, for example, for the shopping clubs, regarding logistics or Facebook marketing, or for the group buying models, we have special workshops on how to source deals, how to structure deals, and those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've been involved with a lot of businesses that have taken off very quickly, become big sensations, whether it's Stardoll, Spotify, Facebook, Skype. But this is something even different even for you, right? I mean, to have launched a site and within a couple years be at, $400 million run rate and $200 million run rate for the shopping clubs. The group buying clubs. I mean, what is going on with this market? We hear this over and over again. There's like 300 Groupon clones in China and they're all making money. There's 50 in Rio and they're all making money. I mean, we've heard some gaudy numbers of what Groupon's doing, anything between, $600 million a year to some people are saying $1 billion a year. This just seems too good to be true, this business model.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always taken by surprise, yeah, and still every week. So when we started, we said, okay, great, we have 200,000 a week. We hopefully can maintain this level. But then suddenly next week you had 400,000. So it is still a phenomenon, but it keeps on going. So that is the surprise in it. If you compare life cycles of those businesses that are a little bit older, and also the Groupons and the Living Socials, then so as far as we can see it, we pretty much track the development that they have been experiences like some months ago.
Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of people have wondered whether a business like Groupon is really a sustainable business over time, or if it's just a new way of basically offering advertising that winds up being a feature of a lot of different businesses. What is your thought on how sustainable and unique this is, not only for Groupon or, should they become a part of Google, for Google, but I mean for all of these little companies in all of these countries that are doing this? Are they, what do they turn into lifestyle businesses? Do they flame out? Does every country wind up getting its billion-dollar winner?
Well, I'm not sure whether I always have to look for analogies. Yeah, at first, obviously there is a need for on the merchant side, on the customer side, and if with every business you fulfill the needs that are there, then it is a nice business. So to what extent will it grow? I mean, that can be that you exactly follow the same path that it has been in the US, but it also can be that there are slight modifications in different countries. So especially for the Groupons as well as for the shopping clubs, we see that when you build these kind of businesses up in countries like Brazil or in India or in Turkey, you on the one hand, you do something which looks similar to a Von Privé or to a Groupon model, and therefore often people tell us, yeah, this is kind of a copycat. But to some extent it's true, to some extent it's not true, because in these countries you're basically breaking the ice and you are developing the infrastructure. So for this kind of e-commerce business, because the whole infrastructure is not that mature as it is in the US. So I think it is way more that we are building in these countries, because we are the biggest e-commerce company in Turkey. We start to become pretty much that in India. And for the Groupon-like businesses, we are basically defining a new way, and we basically own the last mile to the retail customer. So that's very important.
Mm-hmm. Well, how is the execution different in different countries? I mean, sometimes this can be a very tedious sort of feet on the street sales cycle, going out and getting lots of different local businesses to sign up for these things. You know, sometimes you have this crush of inbound people that want to offer different Groupons or have their merchandise in sort of a group shopping type thing. What do you see in different countries in terms of the skills that the entrepreneurs need in order to build a good version of these?
So I think that is pretty much the same. It's just that you have different degrees of development in the country. So sometimes you need to explain a little bit more. Sometimes the penetrations are quite different in these countries. So India has a different maturity of penetration, or Turkey has a different maturity penetration if it comes to Istanbul itself or the countryside. So then you have to, it's sometimes a little bit tougher to cope with these infrastructural disadvantages. But I think in general, it is pretty alike.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So what have you seen when Groupon has gone in and acquired different companies within countries? Do they seem to lose their edge? And I'm wondering if this deal goes through with Google, if that's going to be a good thing for your companies, because they'll be part of an even bigger monolith.
I think there will always be some spillover effects in terms of advertisement and in terms of still developing this market. Yeah, on the one hand, I think it will be a little bit more tougher for the smaller competitors because they still have to keep up with the pace of technological innovation. Since we have a big group and we have to some extent centralized technology, we can probably cope very nicely with this kind of challenges. So I'm quite optimistic and that we will benefit from it, because market gets bigger. At the same time, there are a little bit more ruptures in the system when a big company acquires a smaller one. So I'm looking forward to the next months and see how quickly we'll still grow.
Mm-hmm. So what about expansion? Right now you're in 9 markets with both of the concepts. Do you plan on continuing to grow those? Do you want to plan even broadly? I mean, it seems to be a business that works in every country. Why not be in 1 million markets?
Oh, no, I think we have a very stringent strategy here. So it is, first we have the shopping clubs, and then beside the shopping clubs we have the Groupon models. And as soon as we don't want to go any further and stretching into other countries where we don't have a decent infrastructure to support that, where we would basically have to start from scratch. That I think it's not an aim that we pursue.
Mm-hmm. So the future for you guys is going to be sticking in these 9 markets and just building them out, trying to stay the biggest players.
Yes.
Okay. How big do you think this business can get? I mean, if Groupon's worth $5 billion in a couple years, do you see a similar trajectory, or is the U.S. market just bigger and a different story?
So I've been consistently wrong with everything I had been guessing here. So we started to do our own business plan, yeah, and as a as a German or a continental European, you are normally a little bit more modest if it comes to business plan. So we discussed it with Goldman, and they revised it 2 or 3 times up in the process when we were building it. And still, our November numbers are 50% higher as the actual than we assumed in the most aggressive version of our business plan. So if it comes to volume, how big can it be? Yeah. So I think we are pretty set for 400, 500 million in run rate next year. But the volatility of the truth is pretty high here.
Mm-hmm. So there's got to be a catch to this business. I mean, I'm not letting you go until you tell me, what is the downside of this business? People talk about it like you just are turning a crank and money is flying out of the machine. What is hard about it? Is it that it's not defensible? Is it that you're on this treadmill of constantly having to get users in and deals in? What is it that's the catch?
I think the catch is to nicely read what the taste of the users is, and always finding the best deals that serve the customer base that you have acquired in an ideal way, so that all your metrics is in terms of deals sold per customer base are optimal.
Mm-hmm. We were talking earlier, and you said one interesting thing you guys had learned that was counterintuitive was that offering highly priced items, more luxury goods, was actually a better way to get people to the site than trying to have something really low barrier to entry everyone can afford. Is that right?
It's not easier to get people easier to the site. The motivation for the people to invite other people is higher because the absolute saving is higher, and that motivates them more to invite more people to go over the threshold that is normally set to make the deal a valid one.
Mm-hmm. Any other hints that you would give people developing these type of sites in other markets? I don't know if you want to help out your competitors, but any other things that you see people doing wrong?
Good question. I think it's, you have to carefully see that the markets do not get too tiny where you get in. Mm-hmm. Either the market has to be big, or and in addition to that, I think you must do some research on the way people behave, if they embrace the model earlier, or if it's getting a little bit tougher to persuade people to do this. Yeah. For example, what I mean with this, if you do something in some geographies, you have a ratio of 25 invitations per customers, or in others, 3 invitations per customer that you have. Mm-hmm. So no, needless to say that the one favors the model way better than the other.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we will be watching now that you're on our radar screen. No keeping quiet anymore, Klaus. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.